I had to grow a thick skin very quickly. I had to learn to stand up for myself very quickly. And I had to learn to advocate for my patients very quickly. I felt like overall we weren't educating people about good health. We were just treating bad health. And that didn't sit right with me. I'd had my own journey with my skin. I never felt that I was comfortable inhabiting the skin that I was in. I was starting to think of myself as someone who deserved to shrink.
Actually, it's about getting to this stage of our life and going, you look all right.
Yeah.
You know, I look at yourself and saying I love you is quite a big step for a lot of people, isn't it?
I know that I definitely feel better when I know the product that I'm putting on my skin, and it does feel better. I have to tell you, my skin has come a long way.
Once I started to investigate what happens to our skin and how we can improve it, and I noticed how my skin improved and how concurrently my confidence improved. I don't talk about my mum much, so this may get emotional. My mum is an amazing woman. So she was the very first kind of inspirational entrepreneur that I knew up close. The fear of not having that regular paycheck, the fear of everything kind of stops with me. There's no other colleague to say, oh, I think she did that wrong. You know, you can't, the buck has to stop with you.
What is success? What does that look like?
Success for me is...
Hi, I'm Chinwe. This is a podcast where we dive into the inspiring journeys of ordinary women who dare to break free from traditional career norms, defying social expectations to follow their passions towards a meaningful purpose. In a world often captivated by the glitz and glamour of celebrity stories and achievements, it is essential to recognize the quieter yet equally powerful stories that unfold in the lives of everyday women. And so my guests on this podcast are women who reflect the realities of your own daily lives and whose transformations will truly resonate with you. So be prepared to be inspired, because you will be reminded that the things you are naturally passionate about could be your calling, and that we can all experience greater happiness and freedom in our daily lives when we allow our passion to lead us to a purpose. This is Beyond 9 to 5.
Are we there?
Hey, stranger.
Hi. Hey, stranger. You look cool today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm all
lovely.
pink today. So how's your week been? How are things going at Holcombe, by the way?
Oh, Holcombe is good, thank you.
Yeah.
Holcombe is all good. Looking to do lots of new things, which is quite exciting. So bring in the new year, new bits.
Okay, what bits then?
So I'm going a bit spiritual, a bit woo-woo,
Do you know what? Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
okay,
my God,
that
I
means...
love it.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been on a spiritual journey this year myself as a personal, but I just think there's an area that I need to investigate for everyone else to offer that facility to people to embrace. That's slightly different or very alternative stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it's my own personal journey, but I'm now sharing it with other people.
Because Holcombe Clinic is your clinic, and you've got quite a few things there. I think it's going to become a
it's a hub.
Mini health
of happiness.
hub, a hub of happiness.
Yes.
Because your background, you're a physiotherapist and you're a chartered physiotherapist to the stars, by the way, because you do Wimbledon and the races.
Exactly, the little jockeys, yes. The tiny little people, yes, I'm there. But it makes me feel tall. That's the only reason I do it.
But you also have this clinic where you're growing, lots of what you offer. So there's physiotherapy, there is menopause coaching, there's baby yoga,
massage, mum and baby. There's reflexology, nutrition, foot care, counselling. Yeah. Like it's literally, I just want to be able to offer the community an area they can go where they feel safe and they can be supported and empowered, but find their own happiness, be it a mental, physical, spiritual journey. So for me, that's great.
I mean, that is just amazing. And I think let's talk to our next guest, because I think both of you will have quite a bit to talk about, because I was talking to her the other day about, because I know you're into your menopause is your thing. So I'm going to have an interesting question for her in terms of menopause and her area.
Okay,
and how
I
that
shall
works.
definitely learn.
Yes. So both of you have something to talk about.
Good.
Today, guys, we speak with Tawa Dowling. All right. So Tawa is qualified as a nurse in 1994, so she is super experienced, and she had worked in the NHS for many years in cardiology and later on in cosmetic surgery. Originally from Lagos, Nigeria, Tawa's passion for skincare is tied to her cultural heritage and identity. And 7 years ago, she founded TD Aesthetics, which has helped her gain confidence and find balance in her professional and personal life. So let's welcome Tawa, the ordinary woman next door, who took a while to ignite her passion for aesthetics and who has finally found her purpose in helping others feel beautiful inside out. Tawa, please come in.
Hi, Tawa. Nice to see you.
Very nice to see you. Did you find it okay?
I
was
did.
A bit of a trip.
I did. No adventures, thanks to Google Maps.
Yeah. Right. So can I start, Tawa? I wanted to start by asking you to reflect on the years in clinical medicine, working in the NHS and with CQC, because you worked as the dreaded CQC inspector.
The scary one. Nobody loves, like a tax inspector, aren't you?
No one's ever happy to see the inspector calling.
I know. What was it about those stages in your career that helped shape the Tawa that sits here today?
Okay, I think the one word answer to that is resilience. It helped me build resilience. Working in the NHS, particularly when I went into the NHS when I was 18 as a student nurse, very green, almost fresh off the boat. I'd only been in this country for about 6 years. And I didn't really know, there were a lot of cultural differences between working in the NHS in the sort of 90s, early 90s in Britain, as compared to being a child in Nigeria, which is where I spent the first 10 years of my life. So I had to learn very quickly how to be resilient against a lot of the microaggressions, I guess, that a young black woman would face in Britain in the 90s, where things like being PC and woke weren't really a thing. So I had to grow a thick skin very quickly. I had to learn to stand up for myself very quickly. And I had to learn to advocate for my patients very quickly.
Yeah.
So resilience is the first word that comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, did you work in the NHS?
I did work in it, but not for very long.
Yeah.
I found that it squashed my entrepreneurial side of me, which was really hard. So you want to kind of go, but how about... No, you can't do that. You can't. No. Is that in that box? No, you can't do that then.
Yeah.
So I found that difficult. But I can see resilience is so important.
It is so important, and I think as an organisation, that thing actually about keeping things structured and the way they are. At first I kind of rebelled against it, and I was like, why should I? But if you flip it over the other way, you could argue that it's in a way appropriate, because it's a huge organization with loads of wheels spinning, and there is something to be said about keeping things structured. But once you do that, you lose what you said, Lou. That's
the creative side.
The innovations, the entrepreneurship, and it's one of those things. We could talk about this for another.
There are ways. I mean, the thing with the NHS and other large organisations like this, I worked also for another large organisation, CQC, for over a decade, and they necessarily have to be process driven.
Yes,
because of the fact that so many people are trying to do the same job. You cannot have outliers. You cannot have people sort of doing workarounds, because you have to be able to produce the same results over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And to do that with such a massive organization, you have to have processes that people follow, and also that you use to gauge how good people are at their jobs.
Yeah.
So it does stifle entrepreneurship in a way, because it forces you to stick within the process. And it doesn't allow for a lot of wayward thinking. It doesn't allow for a lot of innovation because it's such a huge and clunky beast. Any innovation has to be diluted by the time it falls through to operations. So it kind of makes you, it in a way, it kind of builds your entrepreneurial spirit from the inside out, because you're kind of left seething, thinking, there's so many different ways that I could do that would be much more efficient. But I'm trapped within this process and I have to do it this way because that's the way it's always been done in the NHS. So in a way, I think working within the NHS and then latterly for CQC, that's where those fires started burning within me to want to do things my way. Because I could see how doing it someone else's way just wasn't right for me.
And so what were the defining moments that pushed you out of that comfort zone? What precipitated the, okay, here we are, I need to move on from
I think
this setting?
There are a couple of sort of little earthquake moments throughout my career. Firstly, in the NHS, I think when I was working in A&E in South London Hospital, I became very frustrated with our inability to provide the best practice care because of the restrictions with budget, because of the restrictions with personnel, because of where we were, because it cost more at that time to educate people about good health than it did to just cure their problems when they came in with bad health. And that was frustrating to me because I could see where we could instigate programs, for example, about smoking cessation, about good lifestyle, about exercise. We could link up with local gyms. And that wasn't in the remit of the NHS at the time. And we were seeing people coming in with things like, avoidable issues, type 2 diabetes, obesity, all kinds of things that were costing the NHS more to care for in the long run. But the sort of ability to stop those problems from the get-go, it wasn't really being exploited properly. So that was immensely frustrating because I felt like overall we weren't educating people about good health. We were just treating bad health. And that didn't sit right with me. So I wanted out of the NHS. And I thought the best way to make a change would be to go to where decisions were being made at trust level. So I moved to CQC. And that was a little bit of a frying pan into the fire.
I can imagine. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it would have pulled you away from the clinical, because you became a nurse because of that kind of human interaction, isn't it? And the ability to kind of transfer care directly. But I imagine going on to the CQC kind of...
It was completely different. And although I felt initially that I was going to be able to affect change because I was going to be speaking with decision makers, CEOs, chief nurses, et cetera, people who actually could have an impact on, everyone sort of beneath them. If you think of the NHS as a pyramid, there's a few people at the top who make the real decisions and then everyone else underneath carries out those decisions, executes them. So I thought that by working with CQC and speaking with those decision makers, I would be able to have an impact on how care delivery was being given out. And again, I kind of came up against this kind of process machine and the fact that it became very much about making sure that every trust had their inspection and had their report so the public could see that we were doing this to keep them safe. And it became less, I felt, about actually helping those trusts to improve care for their populations. So I thought this wasn't for me. And plus I really missed working one-on-one. So it didn't work out for me. It took a while for me I'm a slow learner in that regard. It took like 12, 14 years. But I got there in the end and I thought this isn't the one for me.
But you probably learned a lot, by actually going through that process. And
massively.
For you to then go on and do your own business, you knew exactly this is what needs to be done. You have to have processes to make it efficient. But then you would have been able to do the best processes. So,
and I think also, there are a lot of transferable skills when you're talking about things like risk management, governance. You need those when you're setting up your business. You need to have checks and balances in place. You can't just go into it blindly and say, I'm just going to start making baskets today and I'm going to make 1 million and sell loads. It doesn't work that way. You need to have processes. You need to have, ways to do something so you can look back and say, have I done this right? Have I tracked? Have I, am I accountable for what I said I was going to do? So I did learn that within my time in the NHS and with CQC. I learned how to self-manage. I learned how to track myself, how to keep myself accountable. And I learned how to set up processes that will protect me and my business.
Yeah.
You probably made less mistakes doing it that way. It could have maybe taken you longer to get where you are now if you hadn't had that.
I suspect it, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, all business owners will make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I actually think the best business owners continue to make mistakes but learn from them.
Exactly.
But definitely going through that process and understanding how you have to set out procedures that work. I used to mock standard operating procedures when I was in the NHS because they felt so restrictive. But I have those now built into my business necessarily because they keep me on track.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can be quite easy, can't it, to get distracted.
And
lots of shiny new things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I think because this podcast is called Beyond 9 to 5, but I just wanted us to stop and reflect on before beyond 9 to 5, because I think that we must stress that there is a lot of value in having a 9 to 5 career, because as you can see, that's where we learn a lot of the skills that actually take us beyond 9 to 5. When you then want to evolve and change and take on new careers or take a different direction, the skill set that you get from working wherever you are at the moment is absolutely vital. And my advice would be to just absorb the learning while you're at it, basically, no matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you are, you go to work 9 to 5. It's really important that you are absorbing the experiences and learning from it, because it will serve you well, basically.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
I mean, focusing on the detail while you're under the protection of an organization as an employee is really key, because when you start your business, it can be easy to miss those details because you are firefighting as a business owner for the first few years. And it's really difficult, I think, to kind of sit back and say, right, have I dotted all those I's? Have I crossed all those T's? In a way that you would have to if you were in a 9 to 5 and your boss was checking your work. You wouldn't hand in shoddy work. You would check everything. You would focus on the details. And learning how to do that in an employed role definitely puts you in better stead when you move on beyond the 9 to 5 into your entrepreneurial role, because you're less likely to make those small mistakes in the beginning.
Yes.
In the whole process, in terms of transitioning from, say, your position in the CQC and to starting your own clinic, what challenges did you face making that transition, or what lessons do you learn along the way?
So many challenges. My goodness. That could be a whole episode in itself.
Whole season of it.
I think the main challenge was just overcoming my own fear, and the fear of not having that regular paycheck, the fear of everything kind of stops with me. There's no other colleague to say, oh, I think she did that wrong. You can't, the buck has to stop with you. And also the fear of putting yourself forward, because when you're within an organization, there's safety in numbers. You can hide behind a colleague or behind your boss. When it's just you, you're the only one there, front and center, and everything stops and starts with you. So I think the fear for me was the biggest challenge. Lack of belief, because the fear of the unknown, but lack of belief because I hadn't done anything like this before, and believing that I could do it and pull it off. It took a lot of talking to myself and kind of talking myself off of the ledge and saying, this is possible. Just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean you can't do it. And sort of that sense of belief in yourself. You've got to be really bullheaded to want to start your own business and to make it. You've got to be really stubborn. You've got to be almost incapable of accepting failure. And you just have to keep going and just be persistent. And those are all challenges in their own way, because when you're in a 9 to 5, it's easy to call it in, to phone it in a little bit, because, especially when you've been doing the job for a while. And, you can kind of do it with your eyes closed and your hands tied behind your back. But when you're on your own in your own business, you have to show up as your best self every single day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will fail.
Yeah.
And that's challenging because, let's be honest, we don't always show up as our best selves in our 9 to 5s every single day. There's room for you to kind of slack off a little bit.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to you, you cannot slack off.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be there every single day with all the enthusiasm and energy that the job or the role requires.
Yeah.
And that's quite challenging.
And that's why not a lot of people make it, you know, in the entrepreneurial journey, because it does take a lot of, like you said, energy and
resilience.
And resilience.
Going back to the resilience.
Get back to it, get knocked down, you get up again. What was that song? I get knocked down.
Top Thumpers.
Oh my God. Yes, I don't know why I just go to my head.
I don't know, but keep going. We're loving it.
Yeah, my voice is terrible. I don't think anybody wants to hear me sing. So, I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, why aesthetics though? Because you done sort of cardiology and A&E and acute medicine, and then CQC. Why aesthetics? Where was that? Like hiding behind?
Okay. I think for me, aesthetics is both a personal and a business choice.
Okay.
Personal choice for me because I'd had my own journey with my skin. I was never a confident person when it came to my looks. I never felt that I was comfortable inhabiting the skin that I was in. And that wasn't because I was pug ugly as a child. I wasn't. I look back at pictures now and I think, what were you worried about?
Yeah.
You know, I was gorgeous. But you kind of tell yourself that I just want to be in the back of the photos.
Yeah.
I never felt like I was that kind of, you know, beautiful young girl. I didn't have that kind of level of confidence. And as I grew through my adolescence and young adulthood and sort of, you know, into middle age, it became more and more kind of obvious that I didn't really know how to wear makeup, hence the bare face. I didn't really understand how to make the most of my features. And my response was just to try and hide away. So when you see pictures of me sort of in my 20s and my 30s, even in my 40s, I would try and be at the back of the group. I would try and, you know, use props. I wouldn't sort of hide my face like this, but I would make sure that I wasn't the focus of the group. And I realized that was holding me back in more than just the physical. I was starting to think of myself as someone who deserved to shrink, who didn't deserve to stand up and be proud. And I thought, this really needs to change. And it was around about the time that I'd had my second daughter and I was starting to have grave misgivings about working for CQC, more because it just felt like I'd come to this kind of natural crossroads and I just wanted to make a decision. And then I was speaking to a friend of mine who was also working for CQC and she'd set up her own aesthetics clinic at home. A very small operation. This was before the days of Facebook and Instagram. And she'd made a success of it. And she said, you know, you would be perfect for this. You've always been interested in the science of skin. I did a biology degree because I was just geeky about biology and chemistry, and I just wanted to learn more about the science. So that married with my medical background just made sense to me. And once I started to investigate what happens to our skin and how we can improve it, and I started sort of not experimenting, but just using things on myself, and I noticed how my skin improved and how concurrently my confidence improved. I felt bigger. I didn't feel like I was shrinking anymore.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is what I want other people to feel.
Yeah.
You know, I want other people to feel like they don't have to shrink at the back of the photos.
Yeah.
That they can stand proud and say, this is me, I'm amazing.
Yeah. You sound so passionate about this, right? And it just comes through. I wanted to ask you about passion, right? How do you know this was something you were passionate about, that you were going to then, based on this feeling, build a business, build a source of income, build quite a lot on top of this feeling of, I want to do this? How did you know it was something passionate, not just a fleeting desire to get something?
I went into aesthetics because I wanted to help people. I think pretty much everything I've ever done, there's always been an element of, I want to help people. I want to improve their healthcare outcomes. I want to improve the way they run their health establishments. I've always wanted to be that person. And aesthetics for me was just a natural progression of that. It's just doing it on an individual basis as opposed to for corporations. The skin part came probably after, actually, because I started the clinic, and like most medics turned estheticians, I focused on injectable treatments first, your anti-wrinkle injections, your dermal fillers, etc. And then I started looking at skin rejuvenation. And I realized that that was where my true passion was, because when I spoke to people about it, you know, I was animated. I was, you know, they could sense my passion for it. I do love injectable treatments. I love the way they can transform someone's skin. But my real passion is in helping someone get their own skin to the position where they want it to be. And, you know, I'm not going to be teaching people to inject Botox in their faces. I'm going to be teaching them how to nurture their skin, how to nourish their skin. So that's where my passion comes from, is that love of helping you and helping you realize the confidence that having great skin can give you.
Yeah. It goes without saying that we all want to look beautiful in our own skin. Mm-hmm. But what I'm hearing is that sense of the inside out feeling of it, isn't it? That it's not about injectables and just putting things together on someone's skin or face. It's about them owning their what they want and then working towards it, right? And I love the fact that you're rejuvenating rather than injecting, I guess, you know.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's important for me that comes across, that it's not just about they're going to come to me and get, you know, a face full of filler and come out looking 25. I want people to understand their skin. Yes. I think if you understand your skin, you don't necessarily need anti-wrinkle injections. You don't necessarily need filler, but you need to understand your skin. You need to know what's going on with it. And we are all very individual. What works for me may not work for you, and it may not work for you. Mm-hmm. And you need to recognize that. One of my biggest hurdles when I first meet a patient for a consultation is if they say to me, my friend had this done and she looked amazing, I want the same. And then I have to explain to them why that's not necessarily going to be the case for them. Yeah. So for me, it's about a very individual approach. Yeah. It's always been, you know, I don't sort of like to say this is a bespoke package that will work for everybody, because 10 people could walk into my clinic on any given day and they would all walk out with very different sort of, you know, treatment plans. Yeah. And they might all say, I just want to look slightly younger, but they would all walk out with very different treatment plans based on what I've seen, how they live, what their commitment might be. I'm not going to give someone a 10-step skincare program if all they do is slap a bit of water on their face before they go to bed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm going to work within their limits, because that's much more likely to be sustainable.
Starting your own business, and which I'm sure was quite daunting, you've said that, and there was a lot of fear and self-doubt around finances, around identity. Who am I outside my day job, and who am I to even be calling myself an expert in aesthetics? Or and what were the moments in your kitchen or in your in bed? What did they feel like? Or what did you say to yourself? Did you have an affirmation? Did you have props? Did you have people telling you otherwise to kind of switch that fear into action?
No, not really. But I had incredible inspiration from my mother. My mum is, I don't talk about my mum much, so this may get emotional. Mm-hmm. My mum is an amazing woman. She started her own business in Nigeria, where although Nigeria is an odd country, it's not necessarily a patriarchal society, because a lot of the women are businesswomen. Yes. They run their own businesses. In some cases, they are the main breadwinners for their household. And my mum was one of those. And she started her own business selling textiles. My mum was flying to China and Austria in the 70s. In the 80s, wow. Way before it was a real thing, to source the best fabrics for her customers. She built houses, not physically, she's not a labourer, but, you know, she used her business proceeds. So she was the very first kind of inspirational entrepreneur that I knew up close. Yeah. And I watched her do all this. You know, she didn't go to university. She didn't have a sort of higher education. She was mostly self-taught and instinctual. And but she managed to build her own sort of business, enough to sustain her, enough to send 3 kids to private school in the UK in the 80s, you know, based off of the Nigerian naira, a currency that was decimating. So when I look back at what she achieved, I think, you can't be scared of starting your own business.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a given.
It's a given because
Yes.
I come from entrepreneurial stock.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
so she was my inspiration. And in the early days when I first started TD Aesthetics and I was having the jitters, I would look back and think, look at what your mum achieved.
Yeah.
With very little.
Yeah.
You know, she's achieved so much. She's done so much and she's shown you what's possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of have a responsibility to at least try and match that.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I didn't really allow myself that fear because I'd already seen someone do it
Yeah.
and do it really well.
It's really important, this role modeling. And what we tend to forget, well, actually, maybe we don't forget it. I think we all instinctively know it, that our kids have ringside seats to our lives, right? And they are as close as it gets to the action, and they can see, they can perceive, and that what they witness and the experiences they have carries on through life, so that years and years after you've left home, you're now an adult, you've got years, you're still kind of feeling the impact of being close to such a powerful, amazing
because
woman.
I mean, we're talking like, you know, I'm 52, so she was doing all this, and I left Nigeria when I was 10.
Yeah.
She was doing all this 40 years ago, and it still has the ability to emotionally impact me. And it drives my decision making, because I think if I can see what this woman has done in a period of time where women were not doing stuff like this, they were not going out to China and, you know, Western Europe, not speaking the language. I remember her telling me,
how did she buy
would,
stuff?
a lot of hand gestures.
So what was her driving force? Like what
Us,
inspired
I
her?
think. Us.
You.
Us.
So to look after you and give you a better life.
She wanted us to have a better life. She knew, you know, at the time, you know, I spent my primary school period in Nigeria. I moved to this country when I was 10, and I went straight to a private school in north of England. I don't even know to this day how my mum found it. It was in Grimsby. I mean, nobody knows where Grimsby is. Not people who live in Grimsby. But yeah, it was myself, my older brother, and my older sister. So she had the 3 of us in school. And that in itself must have been really difficult because, you know, to have your children 3,000 miles away from you for that length of time. And I know from her what it means to sacrifice for your family, because she did it. And she did it, you know, without complaining. She took a lot of grief from us because we were snotty kids, as you are.
Yes.
You know, but she was incredibly graceful about the situation, and she always showed up. And I think that for me was the template that I knew I had to follow for my own children. You know, show up, be graceful, be patient, because the snotty-nosed kid period will pass.
Yes.
You know, it's horrible while it lasts, but it does pass.
It does pass,
And, you know, my mum and I have the most amazing relationship now. And I'm eternally grateful to her for all the things that she probably doesn't even realize she showed me and she taught me. But those lessons have stuck with me.
You've got 2 girls.
Yes.
Did I see your daughter on working with you? Does she work with you at the moment?
Yeah, she did. She's kind of, I'm in an hour about whether she wants to continue, but she did a skin therapy course. And she has worked with me with some of my patients, and she's actually really good at it. But I don't want her to feel like she has to kind of follow this legacy of TD Aesthetics. If she chooses to do something completely different, that's down to her. I think I see it as a luxury for her to be able to choose. You know, and I know that for a lot of people, they don't have that luxury. They've got to take whatever they can take. But, you know, I'm blessed enough, myself and my husband were blessed enough that we have the opportunity to allow our children to choose which path they'd like to go on. And, you know, as long as it's not something ridiculous, you know, I want to go and work in a circus. No. But, you know, we will be able to support them and say, you know, what do you need from us? How can we help you achieve this? But it's, as you say, you know, our children they are spectators in our lives, and they watch what we do and how we react. And part of, when you asked earlier about, you know, what was your driving force, I didn't want to fail because I didn't want my daughters to see me fail.
Yeah.
Life as a young woman is difficult. Life as a young mixed race woman is more difficult. Yeah. And I don't want them to have this kind of feeling that you can't reach for your dreams because they're too far away. My feeling is get a stepladder and bring them closer to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I want them to see. I want them to see me trying.
Yeah. Today's episode of Beyond 9 to 5 is brought to you by HealthMary. Ladies, let me introduce you to HealthMary app, the ultimate girl power health platform built for women by women. Connect with trusted female health practitioners who understand your unique needs. From fitness and menopause coaching to skin and nutrition, expert consultations are just a tap away. HealthMary interviews and screens every single one of their practitioners, so you can know that they are the best in the business of looking after you. The app isn't just a directory for finding the best female specialists. The Reels feature gives you instant access to a wealth of qualified content posted on the app by the top-notch professionals on there. This is not social media type of content. This is like a digital health magazine in your hands and on the go. And the best part is that it's free to download and join. So what are you waiting for, girl? Download the app and unleash the girl power inside to enhance your health and well-being. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. Role modeling is something that we don't realize that we are. I don't care where you are, who you are, which corner of the planet you are role modeling for someone.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we should think about and bring front and center, isn't it? A lot of the times, because that feeling can actually be a motivation for you as a person to do better, to push further, to reach higher. Because yes, like we have learned now, people can't be what they can't see. So if you want your children or your family or people around you or your community to be a certain way, you have to be that thing. You have to show up. And like I always say, you have to talk the talk and then walk the walk.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How can one prepare for their skin in menopause?
Wow.
Not to put you on the spot.
How do you prepare?
How do you prepare?
Well, the first thing to understand is that menopause is individual.
Yes.
And there isn't any kind of set directive that all women can follow that will ease them through menopause and beyond.
Yeah.
Menopause is individual, and although it's down to hormonal fluctuation, it's also dependent on so many other external factors. Yeah. Your state of mind is acutely in tune with menopause. I'm sure you've seen this.
Yeah.
The stability of the relationships around you can affect how your skin behaves during menopause because it links to your stress and vasomotor signals. So you kind of find that if you're in turbulent relationships with your partner, with your children, with your friends, your menopause experience is going to be very different to someone who's in a very stable and calm household. Yeah. So there isn't any one way to prepare. The one thing I would say is don't ignore the signs. Don't stick your head under the sand. Accept that things are going to change, and the body you inhabit and the skin you wear is not necessarily going to be the same. And that's fine. Yeah. Because actually it's a privilege to go through menopause. Not every woman makes it.
Yes, true.
And I think we need to stop seeing menopause as something negative.
Definitely.
It's a stage in life that women are privileged to go through because it signifies that you're moving on to another part.
You're evolving.
And actually you're evolving to hopefully a wiser, a more patient being. and that's not a bad thing. Yeah. So I think in terms of preparation, just be more aware. Be more aware and take more time to listen to your body. Yeah. Because a lot of the time you will be fighting with medics and other professionals, trying to convince them that things are changing within you. Yeah. And they are following protocols, those lovely processes. Yes. But they're not necessarily looking at you as an individual. Yeah. So you have to be a fierce advocate for yourself.
That's one thing that I would say as a menopause coach. It's all about, this is your time, it's self-care, and skin is one of those areas, but within that, you need to be looking after your mental state, your gut health,
There's so
all
much
of
more.
those things. Exercise needs to be get outside, experience nature much more, but actually taking time for you. And if that means you spend a bit longer on your skin as an outcome of that, then that's great. Yeah.
I actually find skin prep like quite therapeutic.
Yeah.
I stopped looking at my routines as just, let me just put some lotion on and off I go. Actually, the act of sort of touching yourself and kind of massaging and things like that, if you close your eyes and kind of do it and make it a thing, it's quite nice. And I feel like I've released some proper dopamine and it's really joyful.
It is.
And I say this because we're talking about us as ordinary women who aren't celebrities, who don't have some of the additional tools and people and resources, and who might not be able to afford to go to a spa every couple of weeks. But for me, finding clean products, right, that I can feel not guilty about putting on my skin, and then using it intentionally has been one thing I've done in the last year. And I think I feel completely different in my skin now than I did 2-3 years ago. Just because I feel, and I can notice everything. I notice, what's that hair?
Yeah.
Growing a beard. And then what's that? And what's that? And but I'm not fighting it. I don't see a strand of hair and panic. I'm like, okay, Missy, what's she doing over there?
Yeah.
Like, all right, where'd you come from? And I'm in a better relationship with myself, just giving myself that time. And that costs nothing.
It's so true. I think, I'll pick up on one thing that you said about being intentional with what you're doing in your skincare. When I sort of say to patients, I can sort of design a skincare routine for you, but you have to commit to it. And my skincare routines are never complex. I'm not one of those 10-step, multi-Korean skincare type advocates. It's usually 2 or 3 products, 5 minutes max. Yeah. Because I know that for me, if it's longer than that, I will probably stop doing it. Yeah. So I make it as simple as possible. I make it as easy as possible. But I also make sure that they know that it's time for them. Yeah. It's time for them to just sit and be still. And for some people, that's quite a scary concept, to be still with your thoughts, because you spend most of your day running away from them. Yeah. So, I say, no, you sit and be still at the beginning and at the end of each day. Be still with your thoughts. Formulate them, get them untangled in your mind, and you will step away from that dressing table or that bathroom mirror a lot happier. Yeah. A lot calmer. Yeah. And just your skin will be soothed, but you will also be soothed in your mind.
And that takes me back to a lot of women can't look at themselves and say they like them, love them. And that's also part of that intentional, isn't it? That's actually looking at you and going, actually, you look all right there today. Yeah, good girl. Yeah. As you said, you look back at your photos when you were 20 and you looked gorgeous. At 20, you thought this bit was wrong, that bit was wrong. But actually, it's about getting to this stage of our life and going, you look all right. Yeah. I look at yourself and saying I love you is quite a big step for a lot of people, isn't it?
It is. It's quite a difficult thing to do.
It's a bit retrospective, isn't it? Because your 30-year-old self will look at your 20-year-old self and go like, you're good, you look beautiful. But your 20-year-old self wouldn't have thought that at a time. No. So now your 40-year-old self will look at your 30-year-old self. And then your 50... And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to let my 60-year-old self tell me any different. I'm going to acknowledge now on behalf of my 60-year-old self that I look stunning as it is. So, because it can be, it's a bit of a repetition. I'm just going to acknowledge it now and say it till I believe it. And sometimes it comes down to that, right? You know the truth. You just keep saying it to yourself until it becomes just it. That's what it is,
Absolutely.
There's no particular magic about it. It's about self-conviction. And sometimes you literally have to
just repeat it,
affirm it and reiterate it until
it's also an acceptance.
It helps you
because
accept,
actually, you know, as you said, it's a privilege going through menopause. It's an acceptance that I'm really lucky, but also you acknowledge that maybe it's not so easy all the time and you might like to be looking like you were 20 again, but it's not a reality, is it?
Yeah.
So actually encouraging yourself to go, it's okay, and allow people around you to be the people that are your best advocates. So they're not going to diss you. They're not going to say rubbish things about you. They are actually going to say, you look lovely. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure you'd advise clean products, but how important and accessible is it for...
It's really important, actually, because
clean products
isn't just about the fact that they don't put any nasties in there. It's also about the manufacturer's ethos, their philosophy, the way that they advocate for environmental cleanliness, as well as, you know, physical cleanliness in their products. The way their packaging is designed. So it's not, you know, no one's completely net zero, but they can try to be, you know, to remove as much plastic from the production process as possible. They can try to use sustainable materials wherever they can. That's important to me as much as what actually goes into the bottle. Yeah. But what goes into the bottle is also massively important. And for me, it's about making sure that we're not routinely using products that have been known to cause medical health problems further down the line. Yeah. So there are lots of products that can disrupt hormonal function, which when you're talking about menopausal women, it's just adding fuel to the fire. Mm-hmm. So you want to be making sure that the products that you're using aren't using any products that are carcinogenic. They're not using any products that are hormonal disruptors. They're not using any products, and there's so many of them, there's too many to list. But it's about just having a better understanding of how these products interact and the potential for damage that they can cause. So it's things like, you know, if you're going to use sunscreen, when you use sunscreen, make sure it's not sunscreen that's going to sit in coral reefs and bleach them and damage them, for example. So it's things like that. It's not just about what it does to you as an individual, but what it does to the environment that you live in, because we all share it. Yeah. In your clinic, you are connected with a charity. Is that right? Yeah. Am I right? Yeah. So I use, the products that I use in my clinic are by a company called Illumia MD. And they are very known for their kind of approach to clean science, but also for clinical evidence to back up the claims about the products, which from a medic like me and a sort of scientist, that's really important to me. I don't want to sell products that are untested or unproven. So I want to be able to say to someone, there are clinical trials that show exactly what I'm telling you this product can do. Yes. So that's really important. But I also partner, I mean, Illumia themselves have their own charity, a foundation that helps to build schools and clean water resources in South Africa, which is really important to me as an African. But I've partnered with a local community interest company from one of your previous guests, actually, where they're called Stronger Together Through Cancer, and they're supporting business owners who've been given a diagnosis of cancer and just supporting them to help them kind of understand how their lives might change, signpost them to the relevant resources, etc. So I've partnered with them to become an angel of theirs. And what that means is I donate a percentage of proceeds from key treatments and consultations to their community interest corporation. And it just means that I can help them sustain the work that they're doing out in the community. It helps me sort of give back to my local community. And it also helps me support business owners who might be going through some of the roughest times of their lives, which is really important to me. As a business owner and you're evolving in this entrepreneurial journey, what is success? What does that look like? Success for me is for someone who has come to see me to walk out feeling like they are happy to be in their own skin. Yeah. That to me means that I've been successful in educating them, in coaching them, in treating them, but in getting them to understand that they need to love themselves. Yeah. So it's not about money. It's not about how many products I sell. It's about that person coming into my clinic feeling worn down. And looking in the mirror and thinking, I really don't like you. And walking out feeling, I'm good. Oh, yeah. There is something. That, to me, is success.
once you go beyond 9 to 5 and you want to do other things, that's entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurship. And a lot of people do it because they are looking for freedom, so to speak, right? Freedom to be, to do different things, to come away from the processes, in quotes, that they felt held them back. Do you really find freedom? Have you found freedom in your entrepreneurial journey?
I've found freedom of thought, not necessarily freedom of time, because to be successful, you have to put in more time. You have to put in more of yourself. So you're not necessarily free with your time, ironically, but you are free to think beyond the structures that held you back as an employee. And that in itself is it's liberating to be able to think beyond the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Freedom of your spirit.
Absolutely. You can
Yes,
soar.
your inner spirit.
You can soar. There is, the only ceiling is one you impose.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's much more important. I'd love to have more free time, but I keep saying yes to stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem.
That's your next lesson.
Yeah.
That's my next lesson, is learn how to say no.
Yes.
But I love the challenge of new things.
Yeah.
And whereas before new things used to scare me, now I welcome them because I think I'm going to learn something.
Yes.
And it's great, So for me, the freedom is the freedom to be unrestricted in what you can wish for, what you can aim for, what you can go for.
Do you think we are familiar with the word freedom? Is that something that a word we need to use?
I think
often
women need
enough?
to use it more. I think women, because we tend to be caregivers, we tend to put our thoughts last. And that in itself can be a sort of prison because you get trapped in that feeling of, I can't do this for myself because I've got to think of other people. So I think we don't think of freedom when we think of ourselves. We think of what we're doing for others and how that might help them to be free. But we don't think about how we can be free. And it's difficult because I think we're traditionally set up, even in this modern age, women are still traditionally set up to be caregivers. And that's still something that we gravitate towards, whether that's as mums or aunties or teachers or doctors or nurses or whatever. It is just inherent in us. And I don't think we consider that we can be free and still care for those around us.
Yeah. Can we? What do you think,
Just
ladies? Can
have
we
to
be
be-
free
I
and
think-
still care for others?
I think we just have to be a little bit stronger in saying no, says the lady who doesn't know how to say no.
I think freedom means different things for different people, though, doesn't it? Freedom from a 9 to 5 is freedom.
Oh, God, yeah.
Freedom from your children growing up is a freedom. Freedom from not having to walk the dog is a freedom, isn't it? So
That is very fresh for me. That
because
is
she
very
got a
fresh for
dog
me.
recently.
We have
didn't
a
you?
dog, 2 months at home.
Oh,
And
wow, yes.
I have now realised that I am the number one dog walker.
Yes, and it is, and sometimes it's an absolute blessing, and sometimes it's a hindrance. It's cold, wet, etc. But I think so. That word freedom is all subjective, isn't it?
I think you're very right there, actually, because I think the first thing is to define for yourself
what it means.
What is freedom, because it will look different even for the same person, depending on your stage of life, isn't it? So I think that's really important, I think, to think about what does freedom look like to you. And then if you can define it, then the next task will then be to, let's do something about it. Let's get there. Really also important to understand that this conversation about freedom and happiness and is a privilege, right? Something to be really grateful for, because if you are in survival mode, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Right? It's really hard to see any of this.
When you're in survival mode, the first thing to understand is that you need to recognize that you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Because a lot of women are in that mode and they don't realize
They don't know it. Yeah.
It is just a daily drudge of, every day, the 9 to 5, the kids, the husband, the da-da-da. So recognizing that that's surviving, not thriving, is the first step. And then once you realize that this is not what thriving should look like for you, then you can start to differentiate what would thriving look like for you. And that's when you can start to aim for it. But I think the first step has to be to identify that you're not where you need to be in terms of what you're doing every day is just kind of getting you through each day.
Yeah, it's a grind.
It's the grind of it, yeah.
And that's about having the time to just be quiet.
Yeah.
And that's what I equally find that very hard to do.
Yeah.
Where you just, and also to be quiet and not feel guilty about being quiet.
Oh gosh, that guilt is real.
That's massive, isn't it? To just take a time to go and have a bath.
Yeah.
You're like, should really be emptying the dishwasher.
Yeah, should be doing something.
Should be doing something. Like, I do find that quite hard.
Yeah, I know. So through this podcast, I'm asking every guest to bring me their favorite book so I can try and read. I should be careful, really, shouldn't I?
You might set yourself a challenge there.
I know, right? So I have to try and read it by the end of the season. Now, I've gone from a slim, now this is really nice.
That is weighty, but the story drags you in.
Yes.
And because, the author's Nigerian and it's about sort of living in that
setting,
diaspora of America or the West, basically, I resonated with that really clearly because it was very much a mirror to my own story.
Yes.
And I think you'll probably feel the same.
Yeah, probably.
So I would say definitely that's one for you.
Okie dokie. Right.
Challenge accepted.
So, challenge totally accepted. And I have to actually tell the guests, can you limit it to no more than 200 pages, please? But yes, I will look forward to this because I love Chimamanda's books.
She's a great storyteller.
She's an award-winning author for a reason, and that's great. Through the show, we ask our guests to have a listen to a piece of advice or affirmation that the guests before them have left for them.
Okay.
And we write it down in a green book, which I'm going to stretch. Yeah. Fine. Lou, do you want to read this out then for...
okay.
So have a listen and see whether it makes sense and we can reflect on it because I think we all hold a bit of wisdom within us that, we transfer to each other every day. But I want to do that on this podcast.
Okay.
So we can do a little transfer of...
Sure.
Yeah. Let's go.
Are you ready?
Go for it.
Growth is a process. You do not just wake up and become the butterfly. So how will you invest in your future self?
Oh. I think that's really true. Growth is a process. It's a journey. And I think you have to be accepting of the fact that there may not be an end point to your growth.
Yeah.
So
in a way, that's what you hope for, isn't it? That you
that
don't just stop.
Constantly evolving.
You're constantly evolving. And I think once you've opened yourself up to that fact, then you're never going to be closed-minded again to anything new because you will always accept something new as another way for you to grow, another way for you to evolve. Yeah. So for me, that is really pertinent and true. I think it's about investing in time in yourself, making sure that you don't close your mind to new opportunities for growth, making sure that whatever the situation, even if traumatic or if something ends up not quite the way you expected, there is still opportunity to learn from it and to move on. So if nothing else, you're not going to repeat that same mistake again. So for me, that's what growth means. It's about every single situation that you come across is an opportunity for you to learn and grow.
Tawa, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been lovely, really lovely.
And thank you everyone who's listening and watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Tawa with us today and to, as always, fist bump. My co-host.
Thank you.
Please hit the subscribe button and follow and like and share. If you do that, then we are able to make more episodes, which means that we can get these episodes to many more women who need to hear these inspiring stories from ordinary women like them who are making a real difference and evolving and growing. So please do that. We will leave links in the blurb for Tawa's website. If you don't believe us, go on there and have a look. She is absolutely amazing. And until next time, as always, keep your purpose front and center and your passion burning brightly. Thank you.